Hi, and welcome back. In Chess Basics 1.2, we covered how the pawn moves and captures. But there are a few interesting things about the pawn that we will cover in this and the next video. And one of those things is that the pawn, under special circumstances, can capture the opponent's pawn in a different way. What we do know is that our pawn here on b4 cannot capture sideways and take this pawn on a4 and then move itself to a4, and it cannot take a pawn that's in front of it. Actually, it cannot take any piece that's in front of it. That also goes for the situation. It cannot take this opponent knight. What it can do is it can take a piece that's diagonally in front of it, and in this case it could either take this pawn here or this rook. So the special move or capture, depending on how you look at it, is called en passant. It's French and means in passing. It hasn't existed in all of chess history, but you can read about it on the internet. What it's about is as follows. I'm very good at overcomplicating things, but here goes. If your opponent's pawn is on the 7th rank, right, which is here, it means it hasn't moved yet. And the pawn has the ability to move 1 square or 2 squares forward on its first move. If this pawn moves 2 squares forward, not 1, but 2 squares forward, and it's right next to your pawn, it could be either on the left side as here or on the right side, you have the ability to actually capture it. And the way you do that is by moving your pawn diagonally behind it, like that. That is en passant. Now, when your opponent moves his pawn 2 squares forward, it doesn't mean you have to take it. It's a choice you have. You could either move your king or you could move your other pawn. But if you do that, the ability to capture this pawn is gone. You cannot do it now. The point is, you have to do it immediately after your opponent moves his pawn 2 squares forward and your pawn is adjacent to that pawn. A lot of beginner chess players don't know about en passant, meaning you or your opponent might get surprised or even deny that such a move exists when you first come across it, but now you know. Remember though that en passant can also be used against you. Your pawn here on b2 hasn't moved, it's on the 2nd rank, and you have the ability to move that pawn either 1 square up or 2 squares up. Now let's say you move this pawn 2 squares up. You might want to prevent the opponent pawn here from moving to forward 1 square to a5, right? Because you would take it. But what you have to consider here is that the opponent can do the same thing. Right now you've moved 2 squares up. His pawn is right next to your pawn, and he can move his pawn diagonally behind your pawn and take it as in en passant. That's one special thing that the pawn can do, and in the next video tutorial we'll go through pawn promotion.